Let's talk about one of, if not the most important buffers in the human body, and this is known as our bicarbonate buffer, or we're going to be talking about the bicarbonate system. Now, first off, let's actually define what a buffer is. So a buffer is going to be something that resists an extreme change in pH. So our buffer is going to resist pH. So this is the definition that we want to keep in mind, is that a buffer is resisting pH and bringing our pH back to our original state. Now, our bicarbonate buffer is going to start by, first off, in our cell, when we go through cellular respiration, we're going to be producing CO2. If you remember from the Krebs cycle and from our electron transport chain and even glycolysis, we have a production of H2O. And our CO2 and H2O can actually react to form bicarbonate, H2CO3. So we have CO2 plus H2O, and this is going to be a reversible reaction, and this creates our bicarbonate. And our bicarbonate can also be deprotonated to produce HCO3 minus plus our hydrogen. Now, knowing this equation, this is where our buffer system comes into play. And just knowing this equation, you've already understand what the buffer system is. So let's say we have some strong acids. So this is going to be displaying our buffer feature and this bicarbonate buffer. So let's just say we have some strong acids over here, over here, over here. Well, as we know, from strong acids, they will completely dissociate, which is what makes them strong, and they'll dissociate and leave this hydrogen out in the bloodstream. So we'll have these hydrogens flowing around. And what these hydrogens will do is that they will protonate our water, and this results in hydronium, the production of hydronium. Now, just as a reference, our blood pH is roughly about 7.4. And if we increase the amount of hydronium that we have in our bloodstream, or hydronium ions, this is actually going to decrease our pH. Now, responding to this decrease of pH, this is where our bicarbonate comes into play, because our bicarbonate, and let's do this color for our bicarbonate. Our bicarbonate over here, HCO3 minus, our bicarbonate is going to be taking these hydrogens to produce H2CO3, and by taking these hydrogens, we have prevented this decrease in pH, and this is how our buffer resists this decrease in pH when we have a strong acid in the bloodstream, or just a strong acid in general. This is specifically how our bicarbonate buffer works. Now, what if we have some base in our bloodstream? So let's go with this color over here. Let's say we have some bases over here. So a base has a tendency to take hydrogens away from water, given that, water is actually present. So by taking these hydrogens from water, we produce hydroxide. So hydroxide over here. And by producing hydroxide, we have increased our pH. Now, where does our buffer come to play, and how does our buffer prevent this increase in pH? Well, our bicarbonate buffer, and these hydrogens will be deprotonated. So they're going to be deprotonate, producing H2O again, and this is going to result in HCO3 minus plus H plus, and this prevents that increase in pH, because our bicarbonate over here will be deprotonated and will have these hydrogens that will combat this increase in pH. So what about in a scenario like hyperventilation? So in hyperventilation, this is when you are breathing at a very rapid rate. So you're breathing in oxygen at a very rapid rate, and you are exchanging CO2 at a very rapid rate. You're breathing out CO2 at a very rapid rate. So in doing so, the amount of CO2 that is produced from our cells stays constant. But the carbon dioxide in the blood will be leaving the cell at a rapid rate. So the amount of carbon dioxide leaving our bloodstream will be more than the amount of carbon dioxide produced from our cells. And this results in a decrease in carbon dioxide in our bloodstream when we are in hyperventilation. Now, if you guys remember from Le Chatelier's principle, this is basically when we're looking at equilibrium, how we can reestablish equilibrium when we have a decrease or increase in our reactants and products and so forth. So if we have a decrease in our CO2, in our carbon dioxide, according to Le Chatelier's principle, we are going to favor the reaction towards our reactants. So moving to the left, because we have a decreased amount of CO2, we need to produce more CO2. And in doing so, we actually increase our pH. So in hyperventilation, we are increasing our pH because we're moving to the left side, to the reactant side. And as you guys can see from the product side, we have hydrogen. Now, if we're moving to the left side, we're sort of decreasing the amount of hydrogen that we have in our bloodstream, and this results in an increase in our pH. And to combat our hyperventilation, to get back to our homeostatic equilibrium, to get in that normal state, you'll see most people who are hyperventilating have a brown bag or some sort of bag over their mouth so they can prevent themselves from breathing at such a rapid rate. And in doing so, we reestablish our pH, and the amount of CO2 will increase as a result. So that will reestablish our pH. Now, what if we have the opposite? So let's just say maybe we're swimming and we're holding our breath, or we're all the way down in the deep side and we're holding our breath. So when we're holding our breath, well, obviously we're not breathing in or breathing out. So this results in an accumulation of CO2, because the amount of CO2 produced from our cells is going to be constant. Our cells are always going to be producing CO2. So CO2 concentration in our bloodstream will increase. So CO2 over here is increasing. Now, according to Le Chatelier's principle, since CO2 is increasing, we need to bring this guy back to equilibrium, so we're going to favor the reaction of the products. So producing our bicarbonate and our hydrogen. And in doing so, we decrease our pH. So if we're holding our breath, we are decreasing the amount of pH that we have in our bloodstream because we're increasing the amount of hydrogens that are being produced. And obviously, if you're holding your breath, to combat holding your breath and to combat this decrease in pH, obviously you get out of the water and start breathing again. And this is when we have that decrease in CO2 because we're breathing again, we're breathing out this CO2. So our carbon dioxide is going to leave the bloodstream, reestablishing our pH.